Mother thought if the body were kept, their husband would remain with them. Such a conception of self is certainly gokhara, cow is an asis. We have actually seen that sometimes when a cow's calf has died, the milkman cheats the cow, presenting before her the dead body of a calf. Thus the cow, who would not otherwise allow milking, licks the dead body of the calf and allows herself to be milked. This substantiates the description of Shastra that a foolish man in the bodily concept of life is like a cow. Not only do foolish men and women consider the body the self, but we have seen the dead body of so-called yogi was kept for days by his disciples who thought that the Guru was in Samadhi. When decomposition began, bad smell shortly began to overwhelm the yogic power. The disciples allowed that the body of a so-called yogi to be burned. Thus the bodily concept of life is extremely strong among foolish persons who are compared to cows and asses. Nowadays, the great scientists are trying to freeze dead bodies so that in future those frozen bodies may again be brought to life. The incident narrated by Hiranyakashipu from the history must have taken place millions of years ago, because Hiranyakashipu lived millions of years ago and was even then quoting from history. Thus the incident occurred before Hiranyakashipu's lifetime. The same ignorance in the bodily concept of life is prevalent not only among laymen but even among scientists who think they will be able to revive frozen corpses. Apparently the queens did not want to deliver the dead body for burning because they were afraid of dying with the dead body of their husband. Now this is quite interesting. First of all, Hiranyakashipu, he is instructing the queens. I think it's of Hiranyak's wives who just died. Was killed by Lord in the form of Varha, and he is instructing, and he is saying, well, the dead body is lost, but we are souls, we are different from dead bodies, we are different from bodies, so you should not lament. This one point is important. This shows that even demons had the knowledge of self-realization. So that's quite important. It's not necessary that demigods have knowledge of self-realization. Even demons have. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Because you might find people in this modern age talking about spirituality, but if they are not talking about God, they are demons. They are followers of Hiranyakashipu. So that's a very important point, because we find today New Age spirituality, we find so many sects talking about the self, the higher self, about the connection of self with consciousness. It looks good. It looks very nice to hear all these things, and we think, okay, they are nice. But actually, if you were with Hiranyakashipu, if you were at this time, and Hiranyakashipu would have been instructing the queens of Hiranyaksh about soul and the body, you might have thought, oh, this is a good person, not bad, spiritual person. But we don't judge it. But we don't judge spirituality like that. For us, if there is no God, this knowledge is waste. In fact, there is a Sankhya philosophy, atheistic Sankhya, where in atheistic Sankhya there is all analysis of this material world, analysis of the body and soul, everything. But there is no God. And Srila Prabhupada heavily criticizes. Vyasadeva has criticized such atheistic Sankhya. Although the knowledge is correct, but the goal is wrong. This knowledge of self should lead to God. But if that's not happening, then it's demoniac. Just like knowledge of this material world, in itself it's not bad, but if this knowledge of material world doesn't lead to God, and if it leads to sense gratification, it's demoniac. But if the knowledge of this material world helps us to understand God, and it helps us to lead towards God, and it helps us to serve Him better, then it's spiritual. That's the whole point. So even spiritual is not spiritual if there is no God. That's the whole point. And even material can become spiritual if there is God. So the presence of God makes things auspicious and inauspicious. The presence of God makes something spiritual and non-spiritual. That's very important point. So what happens here? Srila Prabhupada writes here in this purport translation that queens were there. So what Hiranyakashipu is saying, let's come to this verse. Hiranyakashipu is saying the queens were there and the queens were, like they were sitting and the husband's body was about to be burned and the queens were waiting for the husband's body to be burnt, but they were lamenting and they were not giving the body to be burnt. They were sitting there, they were lamenting, and they kept the dead body on the laps. In the meantime, the sun completed its movement for setting the west. So Srila Prabhupada says, if the person dies in the morning, he should be burnt before sunset. Person dies in the evening, he should be burnt before the dawn. That's the idea. Why? Because the body will decompose. That's the whole point there. But Srila Prabhupada writes here in this purport that the queens were in strong grip of illusion among the person who considers body of self. That's what Prabhupada writes, no? Namam dushkrito mudha pravadyantena radhama asuram bhavam ashrita. Maya pritagyana asuram bhavam ashrita. So Srila Prabhupada writes mudha. Srila Prabhupada writes that person is a mudha who Prabhupada explains in the purport, who is a mudha, who is a foolish person. A foolish person is a one who actually, what does he do? Who actually thinks that he is this body and there is no soul. According to material calculations, foolish person is the one who cannot do smart work. Who is doing hard work but no smart work. He is a foolish person. Intelligent person is one who is doing smart work but not hard work. Or plus minus hard work, but smart work he is interested. Similarly, but in the calculation of Bhagavad Gita, that's not the point. Calculation of Bhagavad Gita, a person who is a foolish, Prabhupada says he's a cow and ass who thinks, I am this body, I am not spirit, soul. So anybody who thinks who is this body and who is not spirit, soul, he is a foolish man. Now you might think, okay, well, as devotees we know this, we are not this body. But again the question is, do we really realize this fact we are not this body? That's very important, because to realize this fact we are not this body, that's not an easy thing. Especially when you are sick and especially when you are old, then you feel this body and the burden of this body. So at that time, to be dhira satrana mayoti, at that time to be stable in your mind and to not be disturbed, that is real test there. So we might be devotees and we might be having knowledge of soul and body, and we might not be a fool because we know the knowledge, but we might have the foolishness in us to consider that we are body and we are not soul. And that's the whole point there. As a devotee, I mean to say, we can have tilak and we can have kanti and we can have wheat bags, but that doesn't make us a devotee. What makes us a devotee is the conviction that we are spirit souls and we are spirit souls and we are not this body. That makes us a real devotee. That conception matters. That conception matters. So that conception, understanding in your mind, that makes you a devotee. And that's why Bhagavatam defines who is a Kanishth, who is a Madhyam, who is a Uttam. Bhagavatam defines very nicely. And Bhagavatam says, well, who is a Kanishth? A Kanishth is a person who actually, Kanishth means neophyte. A neophyte, a new devotee is a person who actually follows a process but doesn't understand, but doesn't understand the meaning of the process. Why he is following the process, that he doesn't know. That's a neophyte. And also he is following the process. He might also understand to a certain extent why he is following, but he doesn't have realization of what he is following. That's a neophyte. That's a Kanishth Adhikari. Madhyam Adhikari is a person who follows the process. He exactly understands why he is following, and he also has realizations of what he's following. He doesn't, so by realization I mean he doesn't only understand why he's following. He actually really knows what he's following. That it is actually in his blood. So and of course 𝗙liche is a person who not only understands, who not only realizes, but who can make others realize this fact, that you are not this body. Srila Prabhupada is like that. So Bhagavatam makes this clear distinction in 11th canto. Bhagavat bhavam atmana uttam bhagavat prem maitri kripa upeksha madhyamadhikari archayam evaharye, that's 𝗙liche. All these verses in 11th canto you can go and read. So that's the whole point, that the level of realizations define the level of the devotee. That's the whole point there in devotional service. So, and that is why although these queens, by material calculation, they were like very wealthy and very established, but they were like completely in grips of illusion. They didn't understand. Even Hiranyakashipu. I mean to say, what about Hiranyakashipu? Does Hiranyakashipu has realization that he is soul? Of course, yes. I mean, he went to do austerities and was sitting for thousands of years in austerity, and his body got completely vanquished, but still he kept his soul in the bones. So he knew that he not this body. Otherwise, how can I do such kind of austerities? He was convinced, and that is why he sat in meditation, and all his body was eaten by termites. But he was convinced, I am soul, and he kept his soul circulating in the bones. That's what he was. That's what he did. So even demons realize the fact that they are not this body. What about the devotees of the Lord? But if you have to realize you are not this body, there are two ways. Either you do austerities, just like Hiranyakashipu, or another way is devotion. Devotion to the Supreme Lord. Then we can understand we are not this body. So Srila Prabhupada says there, Prabhupada says that that a foolish man in bodily concept of life is like a cow. Prabhupada compares foolish man to a cow and a donkey. Why? Because the cow, what it does is, Prabhupada says, when we have actually seen that sometimes when a cow's calf has died, the milkman cheats a cow by presenting before her the dead body of her calf. So that's what that's what milkman does. Milkman brings dead body of the calf in front of cow, brings the dead body of the cow in front of the calf, and the cow thinks my calf is there, and it gives the milk. So similarly, people of this, thus the cow would not otherwise allow the milk, licks the dead body of calf, allows her to be milked. Similarly, this is a foolish man who thinks that the body is self. And that is why they want to enjoy this body. That's why when they see these bodies, woman, man, woman, they want to enjoy, because they think we are this body. So they are like cows. Prabhupada compares these two cows. And Prabhupada compares such people to donkeys, because donkeys, they carry the burden on their backs, and they think they're very smart. Oh, I'm carrying so nice burden. And on the other hand, they even don't know what they're carrying. They might be carrying sandalwood, but they have no idea what's the value of sandalwood. And they're thinking, oh, I'm so smart, I'm doing such a hard work. Similarly, these foolish people are there. People carry their own bodies, the burden of their bodies, and they think they are very smart because they can take care of this body very nicely, make it very healthy, and use this body for their sense gratification. So they are smart, but actually they are fools, because they're like donkeys. They don't know that this body is a burden. This body is nothing to be celebrated. Although in this material world, you see this body is celebrated, and there are so many things to keep it healthy, and superfoods and this. I mean, you can keep, of course, it's a service to keep this body healthy, but at the same time, this body should not be a matter of celebration, that always we are thinking of this body, make it beautiful and nice. This body is not a news, good news. This body is a bad news. It's not a fact to be celebrated. It's a fact to be lamented over. 𝗙ષભદેવ says in its purports, in his teachings that that the fact I've got this body, this shows that I am a sinful person. This body you receive due to your sins. Otherwise, we would be liberated from this material world. That's the whole idea. So, and this body leads us to destruction and gives us many sorrows, disease and old age. So this is called foolish civilization. This is called foolishness. The thing which has to be, which is a bad news, you consider it as good news. Do you think it's an intelligent person? It's a foolish man. A foolish man. Your house burned, Oh, it's so nice. So you are a fool. Similarly, that's the whole point. So that's why it's compared to, such people are compared to as is. 𝗙cie𝗶𝗹𝗶. This is a famous verse, 𝗙cie𝗶𝗹𝗶. So that's why Prabhupada is saying the bodily concept of life is extremely strong among foolish persons who are compared to cows and as is. Nowadays, great scientists are trying to freeze dead bodies so that in future those frozen bodies may again be brought to life. This is quite interesting because you see, it was not in Prabhupada's time, but even now, it is like it's a long history. Scientists are trying to actually freeze the body so that they can actually revive it back, right from Prabhupada's time. But that time there was no technology, so they were freezing the bodies in actually liquid nitrogen. And so they were planning to revive it back as science progresses, and people were paying millions of dollars. But now scientists are saying, oh, there's a lot of hope because of quantum physics. And when the person before the person dies, they will download all the information from the brain and keep it in a computer. And when the person dies, they'll keep the body in some quantum gases, something. And when the technology is further advanced, then they will bring that body back to life, put all the information, and the person is live, That's how it goes. He's there. Hare Krishna. So, but that's not possible. That's all fiction and fantasy. Science can claim so many claims. In future we will do and this and that. But it's some claims. Of course, science says there are so many claims science made, and they did it. And they did it. Science said we'll fly in airplanes, we'll go to space, rockets, we'll make machines which we can talk millions of miles away just in an instant, internet. But there are so many claims which is yet not fulfilled, especially concerning to life. Predictions which were claims which were made concerning technology, they came true. They came true, and they will come true. But claims which are made for life, they have never come true and will never come true. There were claims long back, 100 years back, people were saying we will make artificial life in our labs. Still it's not true. So because life is mysterious. Because why their claims will not come true? Because they think life is body. The very premise is wrong, that life is body. That's why all their claims will be wrong. But life is spirit, soul, and that's what we think, and that's what we know, and that's what we understand, and that's why we can boldly say that your claims are wrong, and future it will not. Future, this will never going to happen, that you can bring a person back to life. This is not a domain of humans. It's a domain of angels and God especially. We are benefit. It is said in Upanishads, man is benefit of the secrets of death. And if you see this Kathopanishad, Nachiketa goes to Yamraj, and Nachiketa says, as a boy, that I want to know the secret of death. When Yamraj says, ask for a boon, he says, okay, 3 boons. One of the boon was, I want to know the secrets of death. Yamraj says, no boy, you should not ask such a boon. Ask me anything. I'll give you the entire world. I'll give you so many women. I'll give you so many riches. Just forget this question. He says, no. You are the best person to tell me the secrets of death. You are the best person Why shouldn't I ask you? I am here in front of you and you are here in front of me. You see? So that's the whole point there. The point is here that these bodies cannot come to life because the secret of death is there is no death. That's the secret of death. Body never dies. Body is never living and the soul never dies. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Neha vigramana shvasti pratyavayana vidyate. So what's that verse? For the matter there is no death and for the spirit there is no life. Yeah. What's that? Na tasya. No. There's another verse. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata. It's a beautiful verse, and so the secret of death. Nachiketa asks, Yamraj says, well, there's no death. First you understand that the whole world is fearful of this death. Even we are fearful, all of us are fearful of death. Who wants to die? If there's a choice, leave Hare Krishna or die, definitely we will leave Hare Krishna. Most of us. We might speak anything now, but that's not going to happen. There's one story. There was one man who came to the king and he said, my dear king, I love you very much. So the king said, okay, if you love me very much, there are two options. Either you die for me or you leave this country, this kingdom, if you love me. So he said, okay. So he chose to leave the kingdom. And then the king told soldier, cut off his head and bring it to me. The soldier said, well, you gave two choices, and he chose the second one. He lived up the kingdom for your sake, for your love. So now why are you asking his head? The king said, okay. King said, well, the point was he doesn't love me. If he would have loved me, he would have chosen death. He would have chosen death. He would have died for me. And because he spoke a lie, to me, to the king, the punishment is, and he claimed it in front of everybody, the punishment is his head, death. And that's the whole point there. The whole point is, yeah, the secret of death is we never die, but can we claim it? Can we claim it personally? That's our entire life. You see, Prabhupada again and again in his purpose is saying, you're not this soul, you're not this body or soul, you're not this body or soul. And when I joined the movement, I thought, well, Prabhupada is again saying the same thing. It's monotonous, prototype thing. You're not body, you're soul. Why Prabhupada is repeating? Some other devotees from some other sects, they say, why Prabhupada is repeating this, you're not this body or soul? Because Prabhupada is preaching in America to hippies, and so they can't understand higher topics. That's why Prabhupada is speaking A, B, C, D of Krishna consciousness. But we are giving you X, Y, Z, so please come to us. But that's complete nonsense, because Prabhupada said, my books are there for 10,000 years, and Prabhupada's books are shouting again and again, you're not the soul, you're not the body or soul. This purport. Even Bhagavatam is saying the same thing. So why? Because this is the benchmark of advancement in spirituality. Dhirastatra namo yati. We have so many other symptoms in Krishna consciousness of advancement, so many levels of advancement of Krishna consciousness, so many parameters to judge whether we are advancing or not. The whole science of Krishna consciousness is given in Nectar of Devotion, in Madhurya Kadamni. It's all in details. But again and again we'll come to the basis and the foundation. If we have to understand whether we are advancing in devotion or not, the only way is how much we realize we are not this body, we are soul. That's the only way to understand whether we are advancing or not. And the more we understand we are not this body, we are soul, the more we will be out of sense gratification, the more we will be out of fear of death and old age and disease, the more our mind will be fixed on Krishna in spite of problems occurring in our life, inside out, upside down. That's the whole idea there. So, That is the whole purport, and that is why Srila Prabhupada is trying to speak about those scientists who are foolishly trying to bring back people to life. But devotees understand it's a useless endeavor, because devotees by their personal realization know that this is wrong. It's not just by theoretical knowledge. Prabhupada is saying that scientists are foolish people. Who can say in this word scientists are fool except Prabhupada? Prabhupada was the only spiritual person who told scientists are fool. I don't see anybody else, any spiritual personality who spoke so boldly, even mildly, that scientists are fools. Nobody spoke. Prabhupada spoke. Why? Why? Because Prabhupada read Bhagavatam? No, so many others read Bhagavatam. Because Prabhupada realized the fact that he is not this body. Prabhupada is a realized person. And if you realize, and when we realize something, then nobody can bewilder us. Then the speech and then the knowledge is having force. That's the whole idea. Then that is having force. So that's why Prabhupada says about scientists. The incidents narrated by Hiranyakashipu from history must have taken place millions of years ago, because Hiranyakashipu from history must have taken place because Hiranyakashipu lived millions of years ago and was even then quoting from history. You see, this is another point there in the purport. When these people, either Hiranyakashipu or Lord Ram, you see in the history, or even Krishna in Dwarka when he was in 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝗶 assembly, these people never actually spoke just by logic. There was logic, but there was a preceding, supporting evidence from history. They always quoted history, just like we read in Krishna book. Krishna was in Dwarka in his 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝗶 assembly, and Krishna in the 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝗶 assembly, he was there, and what he was doing, he was actually he actually made a rule that in this assembly everyone there'll be dramas and there'll be plays in which historical incidences will be played and shown. That's what he actually made a system so that people can learn from Puranas and history how to act and what to do. Even Lord Ram, when he was taking decisions on the battlefield, when he actually went to Lanka to kill Raman, and when actually Vibhishan came from Lanka, Raman actually kicked him out. So they were asking what to do with Vibhishan. Should we give him a shelter, or he's a spy, he's a demon? What Lord Ram did, he actually quoted from Puranas and history. At this time, this rishi did like that, this king did like that, we should do like that. That was system there, quoting from history. And that's a that's a good thing to do. If you take decisions, if you don't learn from past experiences, then you will do the same mistakes. So these people, even Hiranyakashipu is quoting from history to convince people. So there is Anuman, logic, and there is Shabda. That's why Hiranyakashipu is quoting from the history. So Hiranyakashipu, he's following this Vedic system. So we should also similarly follow the Vedic system. We should actually quote from the history. We should read other Puranas. I mean, we can read Bhagavatam, and we can always check from Bhagavatam that okay, this king did like that, we should do like that. We should not take haphazard decisions just by logic, because logic can make right wrong and wrong as right. Logic can make day as night and night as day. Logic can do anything. Logic is not truth. That's the whole point. It's not necessary that a statement is logical. That means it is true. Even in philosophy, it's not like that. It is logical to like, for example, if you go to somebody's house and if you see two pairs of slippers in front of house, so then you might think, okay, it is logical that there are two people inside. No, one person might be having two pairs. So logic is not always true. Truth. A plus B is equal to C, and how that goes? A is equal to B, B is equal to C, so A is equal to C. Logically, it's good, but this might not be true, because A is equal to B and B is equal to C, so A is equal to C. A is equal to B means so if you put the value, so if you put people so for example, A is mother, B is child, so A is equal to B because the mother belongs to the child, and B is equal to C, so B is child and C is the friend of the child, so B is equal to C. So yeah, so they all belong to each other, they are same age, but that doesn't mean A is equal to C. That child doesn't belong to the mother. So like for this, many examples are there in philosophy. Logically true, logical doesn't mean truth. So that's why the incidences from history are given. These incidences from history are given more precedence, more weight than logic. Because by logic somebody can argue this should be like this should not be like this. Somebody can say, oh no, this should be like this should be like this. How do you come to conclusion? Okay, actually that king did in the history like this and that was a consequence, so we should take that route. So that is why we have Puranas. We have Puranas with Vedas. Vedas give you knowledge, Vedanta Sutra gives you the logic, and Puranas give you the history. So then it becomes a complete system. So, but even if you don't have Vedanta Sutra, you can take decisions on the basis of Puranas. That is, the Puranas are said, Puranas Purna iti Purana. Puranas complete the knowledge of Vedas. Hiranyakashipu is, Purana means history. So Hiranyakashipu is quoting from history. History means Puranas. Hiranyakashipu might have read all the Puranas and he's quoting from history. That this happened like this. So this incidents occurred before Hiranyakashipu's lifetime, but the same ignorance in bodily concept of life is prevalent not only among laymen but even among scientists who think they'll be able to revive frozen corpses. Apparently the queens did not want to deliver the dead body for burning. Now this is a point. Queens did not want to give the body for burning because first of all they were attached. But the most important point was because they were afraid of dying with the dead body of their husband. Now that's the whole point. They were afraid of dying with the dead body of the husband. That's the crux. That's the crux. They were, because in the Vedic system, if your husband dies, you must die with him. You must not die actually, you will be burned with him. But that was not the force, that was not Sati Pratha. If you choose to be burned with the husband, because if you're chaste and if you cannot live without him, then you are allowed to burn yourself. There was no force that you'll be forced to be put on the funeral fire and you'll be burned. It was never like that. Some females did like that, and it was quite commendable. You sit on the fire and you get burned. For that, at least a female should also be self-realized. Otherwise, how can you do that? You can't sit willfully on the funeral fire of your husband and close your eyes and be burned off. It's impossible. Until unless you don't realize you're not this body. So in Vedic age, even females and even, although Prabhupada says queens were females and they were attached, but even many females who were advanced and who were saints, or to talk about males, they had realization that they are not this body and they are soul, and that's why they could do this kind of feat. But these queens, because they didn't have realization, they thought, they were afraid of dying with the dead body of the husband, so they were holding on the corpse. Nobody was forcing them, but they thought, well, it'll show to people that we are not chaste, that if we don't die with the husband. At that time, Vedic culture was very strong, and people then whole life they will taunt them, and they will put sarcasm on the queens. So that will be very bad. So that's the whole point there. This whole verse is all about, let me just wrap it up. This whole verse is all about the body and the soul. It looks very basics, A, B, C, D. But when it comes to practice and realization, it's not so easy. It actually, We will understand it's not so easy when we become old and we will become diseased. Then we will understand it's not so easy to understand. But we can have this realization, we are not this body. We can have, how can we have? If we connect ourselves to Krishna. Then only it is possible. Dadami buddhi yogam dam. By our intellectual speculation and intellectual endeavor, this is not going to happen. We can speculate, we can do anything we like, but it's not going to happen. It is like when we focus our mind on Krishna, Krishna Surya Sam, he's like sun, then the darkness can be removed. Then the realization comes. And of course, not just this, we also have to practice to not indulge in this body. That's very important. Otherwise, we'll never realize we are not this body. I mean, we can keep on focusing on Krishna, but if we keep on indulging in this body, then we will never realize we are not this body. So we have to also not actually indulge in this body. By indulging in this body means don't make fantasies and dreams of enjoying through this body. Don't do that. Don't do that. Our enjoyment lies in service of Krishna, in chanting of holy names. Maya will try again and again to create dreams in your mind. When you see this word, so it is said, when we see these objects of this word, Maya enters our glance and it makes that object what we are looking very attractive, although it's not attractive. That's what is the job of Maya. Just like sunlight, when you see any object, the sunlight helps us to see that object. Similarly, when you see any object, the Maya helps us to make that object attractive to eyes, although it's not attractive. That's what Maya is. So she will do that, and then we will start indulging in this objects of this material world, in this body, and then we'll forget the whole fact that we are not this body, we are soul. So that's why please keep good association. It's not easy. Don't just play around with Krishna. We have to play with Krishna, of course. Our whole aim is to go back to Golok and play with him. Prabhupada said our aim of life is to go back to Krishna and play with him in Vrindavan. But we don't have to play. We don't have to play with our devotional lives and do some experiment there. That's not the point. We can spend a whole life in devotion, just be happy, willy-gilly, like that. We can just keep on going. But that's not the point. We have to get some realizations of the fact we are not this body. And the more you get realizations you are not this body, two very specific symptoms will come in your life. One is your mind will get focused on chanting. Your mind will not run here and there. The more your mind gets focused on chanting, the more you can be convinced that you are understanding you are not this body. Because the fact that your mind is running here and there is because you think you are this body, and this. If you think you are this body, then naturally the demand of the body is this material world. So your mind will run in this material world, to this, to that, to that, to that. But if you're convinced you're not this body, your soul, then the demand of soul is not this material world. Demand of soul is Krishna. So when you chant, your mind will be fixed on Krishna. Simple. That's a very simple logic. So number one symptom, that how do you know you're getting convinced that you're not this body? You're chanting. Your mind will be stable in chanting. If your mind is running here and there while chanting, then no matter how much knowledge you have, no matter how much lectures you're giving, it's all waste. You don't have any realization. Krishna knows, that's all. Nobody needs to know, and doesn't matter if anybody knows or not. And the second symptom is if you're getting convinced you're not this body, second symptom is you will lose interest in this material world. Isn't that natural? And because of that only, our mind gets fixed on chanting. So the more we chant, the more we are chanting, and the more in the chanting our mind is fixed, we are able to glorify the Lord, we are able to think His forms and pastimes without any distraction of this material world. That is the symptom by which we can understand we are realizing the fact we are not this body. There is no other way to understand or to know whether we are really realizing the fact we are not this body. There is no other way. And that is why Prabhupada said, that's what Prabhupada said, chanting is the central, chanting is Krishna consciousness, isn't it? Chanting is a means, chanting is a goal, chanting is a parameter to understand what we are doing. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Bhajner Madhya Shresht Nam Sankirtan. Bhajner Madhya Shresht Navidha Bhakti, Tar Madhya Shresht Nama Sankirtan. Nam Sankirtan, holy name is the topmost. Okay, so Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. I'll just stand up there.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, what a wonderful class, Prabhuji. So the underlying thing is we are soul, we are not body. But very nice, very elaborated explanation, Prabhuji, which I couldn't forget. And so each time you come, you give a different view for the topic. So the same way when you just told that the two things that we get convinced that we are realizing is chanting and losing the traction in the material. I just laughed in myself that when will I get that, because my mind always wanders during chanting. So maybe one day by Krishna's mercy and Vaishnava's prayers, I will get that. I may get that. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Devotees, any questions or realizations, please share. Yeah, Prahlad Prabhuji, please go.
Dhanavad Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
To all the devotees. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Will my chanting go in vain, Prabhuji? That is my question. Because despite chanting for so many years, I still feel that I am not at the level which I should be. So will it go in vain? That's what is my... I heard in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a 𝗙liche which says that, you can chant up birth after birth and you will not get love for Lord Sri Krishna. So...
Well...
any encouragement?
Well, encouragement is, of course we all are like that, not you. But encouragement is, Krishna is with us and He will guide us, He'll keep us, He will never forget what we are chanting. And I think we will forget, but He will not forget, and He will appropriately guide us if we want to chant nicely. By His own will, whenever He wants, and lead us to perfection. That's the hope we have, and that's why we continue.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Lalitangi Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very, very valid and wonderful points to introspect on these lessons, and also you brought out that how why Srila Prabhupada repeats this body and soul, and that's so unique and that's so important, and without being realized we can't advance. So Prabhuji, one question regarding the cow is that here we understand that the bodily concept is more in cow, and that's how that yasyatma buddhi kunapetri dhatuke is Krishna says to that compares this to the cow, bodily conception. But also we worship the cow, just that Gopashtami is over and we see how cow is glorified in many, many places, that Krishna himself is, bathed in cow urine. So can you show us the...
cow is like, example of cow is given, that person is like cow, and at the same time cow is worshipable. So the point is, obviously the question is why a cow is made fun of, here, if the cow is worshipable. But the whole point is, cow is worshipable, at the same time cow is a very domestic animal. Cow is a domestic animal, and through common examples, common man can understand. So that is why people in that age, everybody used to milk, and everybody knows this fact that if you keep a dead calf, cow will start milking. It doesn't understand whether this calf is dead or living. So this example is then given there to make people understand. There are so many such examples. I mean, we give so many examples from nature to get our points across. That doesn't mean that those examples are wrong or maybe bad. No, we use so many examples from nature to glorify God and also to make us understand what is Maya. So I think it's just a usage here. Cow example is given because it's very common, and to derive the point, people can clearly understand. Okay, this is for us. This example might seem very funny because we don't have any experience of this example. Nobody keeps a cow. Nobody gets some milk. It's not there, but for them, it was very common. So like somebody can give example. Don't be childish and foolish. So that doesn't mean that children are an object of sarcasm or object of to be despised of. No, children are lovely. That's also there. But people can understand, that childish means okay, we understand, we get across the point. So I think that's the only explanation. I also thought about it a lot, but that's the explanation I could come to this conclusion. But once they asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, a cow is so nice and it's so worshipable, so cow is beyond mode of goodness. Prabhupada said, no, cow is in mode of ignorance. Prabhupada said, I said, cow is in mode of ignorance. What the hell you are saying? It's an animal. But at the same time, we say cow is worshipable. So many demigods lies in the body of the cows. And so I think both ways we have to understand. Cow is animal, it is in mode of ignorance. But at the same time, it is worshipable, just like plants. Trees are in mode of ignorance, but nevertheless we worship people tree. But if you see from ontological point of view, it's in mode of ignorance in plant species, but it is worshipable. So as this is like that, that's all I think we can understand. That's it.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
That
Krishna.
makes sense. The childish and child makes sense, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
That example.
Okay. Hare
Thank you so
Krishna,
much.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for your